Yeah. We went through spring and then
Nolan, you.
In just a few minutes, we will be going live from the pavilion at Northwest Missouri State, right behind Bearcat Stadium, for the Tailgate show here with Northwest Student Media. We'll be having Jacob Blair, Justin Quick, and Nolan Brooks.
Hello? I can barely hear him over that.
Yeah, I can barely hear you over the music right now.
Welcome into the Pavilion live right behind Bearcat Stadium as the Northwest Missouri State Bearcats get ready to open their season up against the Missouri Western Griffins. And it's a little bit different this year as I'm Jacob Blair and this is Nolan Brooks and Justin Quick with me. It's a little bit different this year as we normally see this rivalry game at the end of the season. We're going to see it at the beginning of the season this year.
Yeah, they kind of switched it up this year, and having that switch going from the emotions of the last game of the season and taking it out of the first game of the season kind of gives them a real test to see what they're made of coming into the season.
For sure, and this game always has that little bit of heightened emotion with it, and it's to see it come that much sooner is going to make this game that much more exciting, and I can't wait.
Yes, Northwest leads the series 26-13 right now, so 26 wins for Northwest, so up a little bit on the series. But the big thing is Northwest has won 20 of the last 24 matches. They've had the Griffins number up to this point. And again, it's a big rivalry game as these two teams have played the opener before, but it was back in 1989 and 1990. These two teams played the opener, so it's been a long time since these two have started off the season on Thursday night.
Yeah, it's been quite a while, and really since the Mel Churchman era was ushered in, it's been kind of Bearcats since that point on. And like you said, they've won 20 of the last 24, and that kind of lopsided thing is something that we might see Missouri Western take an extra initiative this year to start the season off with a win against us.
Yeah, and a little bit of stats here. Northwest won 30-0 last season in the last game of the season, so they have their number in a way. And then the last time Mo West won here in Maryville was 2012. So Northwest definitely still has something to prove here, being the top team, but I think they can go out and do it. So
yeah, Northwest currently preseason ranked number 5 in the nation, so big game for them to start off the season. But again, we talk about this game coming a little bit earlier. There's no film to look on. No one's seen each other yet, so you're working into this first game, and it's the first time you're going to see these two teams to start the season.
Yeah, and it's really kind of a unique situation to where, like you said, there's no film to look at. You're just you don't want to look at last year's film. You might a little bit, but completely different team this year. A lot of the Griffin starters are moved on maybe, and they've got defense is really stacked with some good senior group and a lot of other upperclassmen, so that may be something they look at some film of those individuals. But as a team, I think this year's Griffin will be completely different from last year as well.
Definitely, and a big thing that we'll talk about later on, O-line will be stacked for them. They have a lot of returning players and a lot of returning players in the secondary for them as well. So it's really going to be a team of older guys versus a team of younger guys, because Northwest has a lot of younger core guys that are going to need to mature rather quickly in this game, and we'll see if they do that.
In Northwest, they've won 7 straight openers to start the season, while Missouri Western, they've not lost consecutive openers since 2003 and 2004. They lost last year's opener, so something's going to have to give with these two streaks, so both teams really ready to go for tonight's game.
Yeah, and in those 7 openers that Northwest has won in a row, they've averaged a margin of victory of 29 points. So, the claims haven't been specifically close. So coming in here, looking Missouri Western to keep it close, for the first couple quarters, keep that emotion going, and maybe, try to stay with them throughout the game to maybe pull an upset.
For sure, and, the Bearcats are coming off a heartbreaking season last year, getting beat first round of playoffs. So there's definitely going to be that next level of play that they want to reach as this new team comes onto the field, so they definitely got to go out and play as a new team and not look back at last year and focus on tonight and only tonight and the Griffins. So
yeah, the Bearcats finished the season 9-3 last season, while the Missouri Western Griffins were 4-7. So you look at last year's performances, it may look a little bit lopsided. The last 5 meetings between Northwest Bearcats have averaged 37.8 points, while winning by 30.1 points per game. But the Griffins, it looks like they've improved this season. They got a little bit of votes in the national rankings, preseason rankings to start the season. So this game should be closer than we've seen the last several years.
Yeah, they got about 14 votes in the preseason rankings, and they were one of 5 teams outside of the top 25 that also received votes from the conference. So, it's a pretty deep conference coming into the year, and I think it's a little different than the way it's been the past few years. They've had those, couple top-heavy teams with Missouri, with Northwest, and then you've got, Fort Hays or Pitt State or Emporia would jump in there. But now I think it's a much, maybe a deeper conference this year, and that might be something tough to look forward down the road.
And that's another thing that is going to be key this year in the MIAA. You have all these three teams that are going to be real close, nitpicked right next to each other, and that's what's going to make this game that much better. I know Mo West wasn't in the top 25, but they still got the votes, and you got to be good to get the votes. So I think that's going to be another thing that'll add on to the game and make them or have Northwest prepare for them a little bit better.
And when you talk about the rivalry game, as this is that close rivalry game, Missouri Western just about 40 minutes down the road in St. Joseph, there's one player this year in running back Josh Codwell. It's his first season here as a Bearcat, but he's been a Griffin up until this point, and that the emotions he's going to have to go through in this game are going to be a little bit different than everyone else.
Yeah, I actually sat down and got the opportunity to talk with Caldwell Monday for a story I did for the Missourian this week, and he seemed like he was handling his emotions pretty well. Of course, that was Monday at that point. I don't know how he's feeling right now in that locker room, but he sat down with him. It was more about the off the field things that brought him here. He said he loved the family atmosphere that Northwest has, and he said being able to stand on the sidelines and look across and see that black and gold on the other side. He told me, he said, I don't know how I'm going to handle it. I hope I handle it well. Hope I go out there, it's just another game for me, but we'll see how, like he said, he's able to handle those emotions and keep himself in check, especially early on in the game.
Yeah, St. Joseph isn't that much different than Maryville. I mean, yeah, Maryville is a little bit smaller, but just like you said, the culture here is just that much different than it is maybe out at Missouri Western, and that's definitely what drew him here. And I really hope that he is enjoying his time here and it gets only better here for him.
Yeah, so again, Josh Codwell will be making his first start for the Bearcats, and we'll talk a little bit more about him a little bit later, but again, a big rivalry game. And when we look at last year's matchup, Northwest Missouri State won 30-0, and there were some big performances, and some of those players are coming back this season.
Definitely, Sean Bain, he's been the man here on this team for the past couple of years, big home run, touchdown passes, and all that different stuff, and 6 receptions for 77 yards. That's a good game. So we'll see what he does in this game. He's one of their best players, so we'll see what happens.
And as we get closer to kickoff time, we're not athletes, but what are these players feeling as they're starting off the season with a rivalry?
Well, I mean, they've got to start off with, high emotion coming into it. I mean, you're playing the rival school. For those like Bain who've been here, played them 3 years in a row, they know what that rivalry is like. So hopefully those senior leader guys will be able to help the younger guys on the team, including the quarterback, Braden Wright. I mean, he's a redshirt freshman, first collegiate game against a rival from, 40 minutes down the road. That emotion for him has got to be off the charts right now.
For sure, it's got to be a little bit intimidating for the players, especially with the new kids, but they're under a good coach. Rich Wright knows what he's doing. He knows the system. He's been here for a while, so hopefully he's kind of, help those kids get ready for the game and pump them up and motivate them so they aren't as intimidated. I mean, they can still be a little bit, but hopefully he has them ready for it.
Yeah, and the opening game of the season is always going to be one of your highest emotional games of the season as you get ready to start your campaign towards, if you're a Bearcat, a national championship, as that's almost what's become expected here at Northwest. And as they look for that, now you've added in, again, that rivalry with Missouri Western, so there's just a little bit more. You can already feel the atmosphere around here. You're starting to pick up as we're still about an hour and a half from game time.
Yeah, you listen to any coach or player talk about, that first game of the season, whether it be pro level, college level, or high school. You've been hitting each other all week during practice, all summer during practice, and finally you get to go out there and just hit somebody else, somebody that's not on your team, and to be able to go out and, play against the rival school first week of the season, those hits may be just a little extra hard, during the first quarter, wanting to really, get that hit on them good.
And being a rivalry game, a lot of times you'll see those rivalry games will stay a little bit closer, a little bit longer. So yeah. What do the Bearcats need to do, and then what do the Griffins need to do to keep this game close as you get to halftime looking into the third quarter?
Well, we've already kind of hinted at, the O-line for Mo West is outstanding, brought back a lot of guys. So they're going to need to come out and perform like they have. And I think their offense will do a little bit better and keep it close. Northwest got a lot of defensive captains. I mean, 4 out of the however many captains are defense. So I think defense is going to be key for Northwest to keep it close, and it's really just going to be back and forth if those two defense and offenses are working.
And if you look at the roster for Northwest, you see a lot more age in that defense versus the offense, a lot more younger guys offensively. And so that's why we see 4 captains are defensive captains for the Bearcats. And when you have such a heavy age on one side of the football, what does that do for a team like the Bearcats?
Well, it can do a couple things. In the locker room, that leadership is going to be there, regardless of what side it's on, whether it be offense, defense, or even special teams. I mean, their special teams have been great in the past few years. They blocked 7 punts last year, which led the nation. So I mean, you bring back a group like that on special teams, that's going to help out too. And on the offense specifically, I mean, they have a lot of younger guys in key positions, but they still have those older guys there like Bain and like Chase White and those other guys who have been in this system for a while that are able to teach the younger guys coming in, like, hey, this is the system we run, this is how we do it, this is the Bearcat way, as we it's coined here on campus, the Bearcat way of doing things. And so having those leadership guys sparsed out between the offense, I think will be a big help to those young guys.
Yeah, Nick Hess, one of the linebackers for the Bearcats, was at the media luncheon on Tuesday and kind of spoke about kind of what we just talked about a little bit, and he kind of said the same thing. He knows that the defense is a little bit older, but he talked about it being a whole team, and that age just because it's on defense doesn't mean it makes the defense any better than the offense.
For sure, I feel like the older players here on the team, like Justin said, have really, really drilled into these younger guys that it's a family around here. It's not just, okay, you got a jersey, you go out, you do what you need to do, and that's it. From day one of camp up until the last game of the year, they're family every moment, and I really hope the younger guys for Northwest are enjoying this, and we'll see what happens.
And the last little thing before we take a break here is you've got the older guys versus the younger guys. The older guys, they've had an opening game before. They know what it's like to roll out onto Bearcat Stadium for that first game. The younger guys, they don't quite know that feeling yet. What are the younger guys going to have to do when they roll out there and see the kind of culture that's out here at Bearcat Stadium? I
mean, Coach Wright spoke about it during the media conference. He said, they're just going to have to limit the mistakes. The emotions are high. Their blood's pumping, their heart's going. First game, it's going to be a packed house here tonight, I have no doubt. And they've just got to really limit their emotions, go out and make plays they know they can make, and really limit those mistakes, not give Missouri Western the opportunity to get the short field, or on defense give it right back to them.
For sure. And these younger guys, they recruit them here for a reason. They've gone and they've watched them play in their high school games, and so they know what they have athletic wise. So I really feel like Coach Wright knows what he's doing when he brought them here, and they're going to go out and they're going to make the plays that they need to make, and hopefully they get the jitters out in their little pregame routines and all that stuff and go out and perform.
Yeah, so we've talked about the rivalry as Northwest Missouri State's going to take on Missouri Western, and when we get back to the Tailgate show, we'll go around the scene. We'll talk about the top 25 national rankings as well as the MIAA here on this Thursday night.
Just a series of theatrical plays, and the curtain's being pulled, and it's time to set the stage. Well, there's too much makeup on all of these faces as people desperately try to find their place.
I'm Devin Albertson, the sports director at KZLX. Join us for the weekend sports kickoff every Monday through Thursday at 9 p.m. on KNWT Channel 8. Ryan Elliott, Trevor Mater, Jacob Blair, and myself provide insight on Bearcat athletics. We also bring on the dynamic duo of Perry Randall and Noah Cooper to discuss the NBA. We also give our honest opinions on the NFL, MLB, and college basketball. Tune in every Monday through Thursday at 9 p.m. on KNWT Channel 8.
Amazing Things is a series that shows the best of the best.
What looks like your average everyday person can actually be an artist, a creator, a big thinker, and even a local hero.
We want to show you the artistry in their work, their dedication, and their drive.
Our show is amazing things, but what we truly show are amazing people. Watch Amazing Things Monday through Thursday at 7:30 p.m. on KNWT Channel 8.
What's up, guys? I'm Jenny James, the new host of the back-to-back-to-back KNWT Show of the Year, Bearcat Update. This semester, we will give you the inside scoop on Bearcat basketball and Maryville High School hoops. Later in the semester, we bring you all of the news on spring baseball and softball in the Maryville area. Check out Bearcat Update every Monday through Thursday at 6 p.m. on KNWT Channel 8, or check out all of our previous episodes on YouTube at KNWT. Tune in.
Welcome back to the pavilion here at Northwest Missouri State as we are live for the Tailgate show right behind Bearcat Stadium as the Northwest Missouri State Bearcats get set to take on the Missouri Western Griffins. And now we'll take some time to look around the nation as well as around the MIAA, and we'll start with the first rankings that came out, those preseason rankings, and on the top of those was Texas A&M Commerce. They received 13th first place votes and end up on the top of those preseason rankings. West Florida is second. They have a big matchup this weekend as they're going to take on number 22 Carson Newman. Minnesota State sits at number 3. Indiana out of Pennsylvania, they're going to take on number 15 Ashland, and a little bit of an interesting start to the season there for Ashland.
Yeah, Ashland's the team that knocked Northwest out of the playoffs last year, and I'm sure that'll be a pretty good matchup to keep an eye on, considering both those schools are top 15, and it'd be a nice matchup to watch week 1.
Yeah, and then number 5, tied for 5th, is the Bearcats of Northwest Missouri State, as well as Fort Hays State, and we'll get to their matchup a little bit later when we talk about the MIAA, but they'll take on number 18 Central Missouri. So again, a big MIAA matchup to start.
Definitely, that is going to be an interesting game because, with Northwest and Hays tied for the voting, Hays is definitely going to have to go out and play real tough to beat UCM, and that'll definitely shift up the poll whoever wins that game, so we'll see what happens there.
And then Harding out of Arkansas, they sit at number 7. Ferris State, they sit at number 8. Central Washington at 9, and then rounding out your national top 10 is Grand Valley State, and they have another big matchup as they'll take on number 13 Indianapolis. So that is the rankings right now in the top 25, and again, Northwest Missouri State sits there right at the 5th position.
Yeah, it's a kind of an interesting top 25 or top 10 there because you've got a lot of big name schools like Grand Valley State, a lot of staples in D2, but you've also got 4 schools that lost more than 2 games last year. So I mean, the rankings are really showing trust, and those schools are going to reload and come back stronger the next year. I mean, Northwest is one of them, and obviously we'll see what happens this year with the Bearcats, but it's interesting that they've got 4 schools in there that have at least 3 losses.
Yeah, and those 4 schools were West Florida. They were 11-4 last season. They're number 2. Indiana Northwest Missouri State is one of those. They're 9-3 last season. Harding out of Arkansas, they were 11-4, and then Grand Valley State was 8-3 last season. So again, a big shakeup in the top 10 from where they ended last season.
Yeah, for sure. That, like Justin said, that's going to be really key coming into this year to really see how those teams perform overall. And, with that trust in those teams that have 4 losses and then come back and be top of the poll, they definitely have something to prove. A&M Commerce at number 1, defending national champions. Northwest has been in that seat before, so we'll see how they do this year, and hopefully they go out and perform well too.
Yeah, one other thing when you look at the preseason rankings is 5 different teams got first place votes. That was Texas A&M Commerce, West Florida, Minnesota State, Indiana out of Pennsylvania, and then Northwest Missouri State also got 2 first place votes. But you've already got 5 different teams that someone's looking at being a possible national champion.
Yeah, it's a little different than the past couple years with Northwest coming off back-to-back championships. It was undefeated season, pretty easy to give them all the first place votes coming into the year. This year's kind of a little more spread, shows a little bit maybe uncertainty at who should be at that top spot, but you can see you've got 5 really good teams there that people are all looking for to perform well this year.
And then when you look at the MIAA as a conference, they've got 3 teams that sit inside the top 25. That's Northwest Missouri State, Fort Hays State, and then Central Missouri. But they also have 5 other teams that received votes in the poll, and that was Pittsburgh State. Missouri Western, the team Northwest plays tonight, they received 14 votes. Emporia State got some votes. Central Oklahoma and then Washburn all received votes in the national poll.
Yeah, they are really shaking up what we think about the MIAA. The past couple of years, Northwest has really driven it home and taken the MIAA with a breeze. But this year you have all these teams receiving votes that can really be sleeper games in the MIAA, and I feel like it's really going to be a dogfight in any position on the MIAA rankings, and we'll see what happens.
And when you look at those MIAA rankings, it is Northwest Missouri State that sits atop of those as well. But, and Justin, you pointed this out a little bit earlier when we were looking at them. It's extremely close at the top with where the point system worked out for who was the preseason number one in the MIAA.
Yeah, it's a really, I feel like it's a really strong conference this year from top to bottom. As, like I said earlier, from years past, it's kind of been, there's been 3 or 4 teams up top that have really been strong, and then it's fallen off a little bit once you got to the middle, and especially near the bottom. But this year, I feel like there's really, 5, 6, 7 teams deep that you have to worry about each and every week.
Yeah, for sure. With Fort Hays State coming off last year, they beat Northwest in Maryville. That neck-to-neck game ended 13-12. And then UCM, they gave Northwest a game at Arrowhead. So there's going to be plenty of competition throughout the MIAA. And, like I said earlier, don't sleep on Missouri Southern or somebody down at the bottom of that ranking who could really get it together over the next couple weeks and come out and get a W over somebody who isn't ready for it.
And one of the things about the MIAA is Missouri Western picked 9th in the MIAA, but they received national votes, so that kind of just shows how deep the nation views this conference.
Yeah, the nation's viewed this conference for a while as being one of the top conferences in Division II, not only because Northwest has been such a powerhouse, but you've got teams like Pitt State, who has, for years been a powerhouse of their own. And then we've got teams like Emporia, who have built a legacy on their own, and even teams like Fort Hays last year, who kind of just came out of nowhere. They were one of those teams like Missouri Southern, like Nolan said this year, they were at the bottom a couple of years ago, and all of a sudden they just came out of nowhere and kind of shocked us all. But you've really got that depth there in the conference, and I think that'll be something to keep an eye on this season as every team moves forward.
For sure. And the MIAA every year continues to surprise people. You think that 3 or 4 of these teams that are right in the middle of the pack will just drop off, but those are the teams that have a lot of depth, and they have a lot of older guys or middle age that'll come back and revive what that team had the year before and keep them right there in the middle or right there at the top. And I think that's going to be something to watch for with teams like Mo West, who have all these guys coming back, and you don't know what's going to happen, if they're going to still work together the same way or if they'll drop off or do even better. So.
And one of the things about having a strong conference is when you're looking towards that end of the season tournament for the national championship, it can really help you when you're getting ranked, but it can also hurt you a little bit because you might pick up a couple losses, but they'll be strong losses, but you're still going to pick up those couple losses.
Yeah, and we really saw that last year when Northwest picked up those 2 losses. They were real near the end of the season with the loss to Pitt State and then the Fort Hays. Even with those 2 losses, though, they were still able to get into the conference, into the NCAA tournament. And there was really not a whole lot of question as to whether they were getting in or not. Part of that could be because of the championship pedigree that they've built. They kind of, let them get in with that pedigree, thinking, well, it's Northwest, anything can happen. But we've even seen in the past couple of years that 3 teams from the MIAA consistently have been getting in. And normally that's the most teams we have from any conference getting into the tournament.
And the MIAA, they're going to start the season off. Obviously, the Missouri Western Griffins are here in Maryville taking on the Northwest Missouri State Bearcats. But another big matchup is number 5 Fort Hays State. They're going to host the number 18 Central Missouri. So that's a big game to start the season for both of those 2 teams.
Yeah, for sure. And, like I said earlier, with Hays and Northwest being tied right there at 5 in the rankings, it's really going to shake up the polls what happens this week. You're either going to see Hays remain in that spot, or you're going to see UCM bounce them down a couple spots and then UCM move up, and a whole bunch of different things will happen. So I'm really excited for that game. Trust me, I'm excited for the Northwest Mo West game, but that's going to be a big game in the MIAA.
And all of the MIAA games will all start tonight at 7 o'clock, so all simultaneous games as Washburn will take on Lindenwood and St. Charles, Missouri. Emporia State will take on Northeastern State, as then the University of Central Oklahoma will take on Pittsburgh State, and then Missouri Southern State will have the University of Nebraska at Kearney. Of the other 4 matchups in the MIAA, do any of them stick out to any of you guys?
I think that Washburn and Lindenwood matchup would be something to watch. Both of those have kind of been considered a low liar in the conference the past few years, but Washburn was able to give Northwest quite a run for their money last year when they played them. I mean, I think it was a 1 or 2 point game at the end of it, and they play a really tough defense, and they have a really good run game to come along with that. And any team that plays good defense can run the ball. I think they can be a sleeper this year.
I'm gonna kind of keep it consistent with last year. I think Hayes is gonna give a good run for the money for the MIAA. UCM every year just kind of plays a little bit of mediocre football and then just comes out of nowhere, and they can take you down. Honestly, I feel like it'll be another dogfight between Northwest and Hayes for the top of the MIAA, because even though they have young cores coming back and they lost all the players, there's still going to be that real molded championship contending offense-defense football team, and I think that's how it's going to end up.
And for all 12 teams of the MIAA, really important games tonight, with it being such a strong conference. Again, 8 teams received votes in the national poll, so each one of these games are important. And again, as Missouri Western takes on Northwest Missouri State tonight here at 7 o'clock at Bearcat Stadium, it's going to be another big MIAA matchup that when you've got that big game out there in Hayes, Kansas, you got to take care of business if you're Northwest to hang with whoever wins that game.
Yeah, they can't be distracted by what's going on out there. They've got to really focus in on what they're doing here and make sure they get the get their job done tonight, and then worry about what team they play next. And Coach Wright does a really good job of keeping his players focused on this week, who we're playing, and really focusing on themselves to not go in and make mistakes, do what they're supposed to do their job, and get the win.
And that's definitely going to be something that needs to be a consistent thing week to week. Don't let them worry about what's going on out in the rest of the conference. Really go out, focus on who you got on the field tonight, like Justin said. And I think when the Hayes game comes up on November 3rd, by then, if you've really focused on yourself and honed in who you are as a team, by then you won't have to worry about one of those matchups if it's a number 1 versus number 2 or something like that, and they'll go out and they'll play good football.
Yeah, so again, all the MIAA matchups will start at 7 o'clock tonight, and when we get back to the tailgate show here at the Pavilion right behind Bearcat Stadium, we will talk about what Rick Wright had to say Tuesday at his press conference.
Hello and welcome to Gen 2. I'm Mackenzie Doherty, and I'll be your host for this game-fueled adventure. This semester, we will bring you all of our favorite games with our new Gen 2 crew. You can catch us every week, Monday through Thursday at 8 p.m. on Channel 8, or watch all of our content online on Facebook or YouTube at KNWT Channel 8.
Life is just a series of theatrical plays, and the curtain's being pulled, and it's time to set the stage. Well, there's too much makeup on all of these faces as people desperately try to...
Amazing Things is a series that shows the best of the best.
What looks like your average everyday person can actually be an artist, a creator, a big thinker, and even a local hero.
We want to show you the artistry in their work, their dedication, and their drive.
Our show is Amazing Things, but what we truly show are amazing people.
Watch Amazing Things Monday through Thursday at 7:30 p.m. on KNWT Channel 8.
What's up, guys? I'm Jenny James, the new host of the back-to-back-to-back KNWT Show of the Year, Bearcat Update. This semester, we will give you the inside scoop on Bearcat basketball and Maryville High School hoops. Later in the semester, we bring you all of the news on spring baseball and softball in the Maryville area. Check out Bearcat Update every Monday through Thursday at 6 p.m. on KNWT Channel 8, or check out all of our previous episodes on YouTube at KNWT. Tune in.
Welcome back to the Pavilion. We are live here at Bearcat Stadium as the Northwest Missouri State Bearcats get ready to take on the Missouri Western Griffins. And Tuesday, Rich Wright, the Bearcat coach, was at the media luncheon and talked about several things, but one of the key things he talked about was that the QB competition with the Bearcats, as there were 3 guys, all very young, that came into camp looking for that starting job, and he talked about who got that starting job. So here's Coach Rick Wright.
Yeah, we went through spring and summer, and each of the guys had different characteristics about them. we sat down and looked at it collectively, he was the best athlete. And we felt like moving forward into the first football game that made the most sense. A year ago, we kind of let that battle fester throughout camp. And right or wrong, it was a different scenario because that was two seniors. And it was two guys that had the respect and admiration of their teammates. So whichever direction we went, we felt like we were going to be okay with that direction. This is a little bit different because our team didn't really know the younger quarterbacks. And so we felt like it was going to be more important this season to kind of put somebody and insert somebody that everybody could kind of rally around and move forward.
And so Coach Rich Wright had a lot to say about the quarterback situation, and it was redshirt freshman Braden Wright that ended up with the starting job, and he's out of Elkhorn, Nebraska, but tonight he's going to be making his first career pass, his first career start, so a lot of growing that young Wright is going to have to do.
Yeah, and as Coach Wright said in the little clip there, it was really a different situation than what they had last year. Last year was kind of, they didn't know for sure who coming into the first game. They just kind of were feeling it out and feel who had the momentum going into the first game. But this year, from the beginning of camp, they kind of had a feeling of who they wanted. And as soon as they were for sure from what they saw the first few weeks of camp, they stuck with him and they've rode with him, and we'll see how it pans out for him tonight.
And something else that's going to be different this year from last year, you had two senior quarterbacks last year. Now you're bringing in a redshirt freshman. A freshman versus a senior quarterback are two very different things. And I feel like Braden's going to have to definitely hone in, and he's going to have to mature a lot faster than he feels. And I think he's up for the job. I feel like that's why they went with him. So I think he's definitely going to do a good job tonight.
And one of the things Rich talked about in that press conference was the character of Braden Wright. It was one of the key reasons they went with him as he came in, and he didn't necessarily try to go out and get the job. He tried to be a good teammate, and that ended up getting him the job tonight. So maybe he's a little bit mature beyond his years, and hopefully we'll see that tonight.
Yeah, that's one of the big things with anybody who comes into the Bearcat locker room is that character. You can be the greatest player on the planet, but if your character's not right, they don't want you here. And that's the first thing that I've always heard whenever I've asked anybody around here, what's it about the football team? Well, it's their characters, that Bearcat way. It's something beyond the football field of being that leader, going out of your way to do the extra step, doing that extra rep in practice when you don't need to, staying late after practice to work on your game. And I'm sure Braden's shown them a lot of that. I doubt if he hadn't have showed them that, they probably would have went with the guy that did show them that. So they made their decision, and we'll see how it pans out for him tonight.
Yeah, and Braden's got a dual threat kind of offense to him. He can sling the ball downfield and make all these passes, but if you give him open field, he's going to run for it. And that's something that Mo West is going to have to focus on, really keeping him at bay and not letting him run all over the field, but also keeping that secondary in check and not letting him throw deep home run touchdown passes to Sean Bain or something like that. So that'll be something to watch for.
And anytime you have that dual threat in a quarterback position, always makes the defense have to prep a little bit more, work a little bit harder. So what is Braden going to be looking for in that Missouri Western defense?
Well, I think he's going to be looking for those holes that that secondary, like Nolan said, is a very experienced secondary. He's going to be looking for those holes where he has a chance to take off and make that little 5-6 yard scramble, get him comfortable, get his feet wet, maybe get a hit, get him into the game a little bit. But he's also going to be looking for those easy little check downs. They go 5-6 deep at the running back this year. Their running back position is really where their depth is on the offense. And those little check downs, those can turn into big plays, especially with the athletes that Northwest has. So I think him utilizing his feet, his speed, and also looking for those little check downs be something to early in the game get comfortable. Maybe we'll see a few screen passes to get him into the flow of the game a little bit.
For sure, and with the running back depth chart being so deep, you can put some of them out to the slot position, or you can keep them in the backfield for blocking or whatever, and that's really going to be something that's going to widen out the offense for Northwest. It's going to make them a little bit more versatile. It's going to make it harder for the Mo West defense to really keep all these different weapons at bay, and that's something that is going to be key for Mo West tonight.
And in the press conference on Tuesday, Rich Wright also talked about how this first game is a little bit different. As we talked about earlier in the show, it's just a little bit different than other first games, as you have your rivalry against Missouri Western starting off the season. So again, here's Coach Rich Wright talking about this rivalry game.
I guess it doesn't really matter who you start with. It is what it is, and that's got to be the focus. And so, we'll never choose the schedule or who we play, and so you just got to prepare. I'm a cup half full kind of guy, so I choose to look at it as, what an awesome experience to start out our season against a rival in a game that's going to be, the attendance should be fantastic. Two teams that are really familiar with each other, and it should be just a great way to kick off the college football season.
And I know we talked about it a little bit earlier in the show, but that's just how important it is to the emotions and what it's like to start off the season against Missouri Western, one of your biggest rivals, and Northwest's just going to have to keep those emotions in check when they start this game. Yeah, and that'll really come from those senior guys leading them. I mean, like I said, they've been here in this situation. They know what it's like to play Mo West. They know what it's like to open a season here at Bearcat Arena or Bearcat Stadium, and they're really going to have to lead those young guys or those guys who haven't been on the field yet. I mean, and with all the emotions between Braden, the freshman quarterback, and Josh Caldwell as well, all on that offense, the emotions are really going to have to be kept in check by guys like Maine or even some of the offensive linemen who have been there for years. They're going to have to really be able to lead those young guys out on the field and help them keep calm.
Yeah, and we keep bringing this up. This leadership by these older guys is definitely something that's going to have to be every single snap, every down in this game in order to keep those freshman guys in the right mindset, make sure they're making the plays that they're told to make. And I think if Braden really has the relationship that he wants with his O-line and his receivers and all that, then he's definitely going to go out and perform the way he wants to and the way Coach Wright wants him to.
And one of the big things about those young guys is they're, a lot of them are coming from small high schools where, high school football is a big thing in their town, but it's not quite what it is here in Maryville. And so when you roll out of that, locker room and you come out and you see, upwards of 8,000 people out there getting ready to watch a football game, it can be a little bit intimidating for the young guys. And again, that's where those seniors can, calm those guys down. Yeah, that'll be a key, is having those seniors calm those guys down. But also what helps is the coach staff here, they really look for winners. I mean, they look for guys who have been in those situations. I mean, Wright's a two-time Nebraska State champion, so he's been in those critical games. They might not have been surrounded by as many people as they are tonight, but he's been in those critical games and those championship moments, and he's been that leader there, and he's got to learn and grow to be that leader here at Northwest.
Yeah, he's in that spot for a reason, and there's always that worry that the freshmen will get scared by the big bright lights of this football stadium in this game. But they brought him in to play for this team. They recruited him for this team, so they know that they've got the composure. They know what it takes to be a leader at the big stage, so far, unless they go to another level or something. But they know what it takes to be at this level, and that's why they're going to go out and perform like they need to.
In just a few moments, we'll be back live here at the Pavilion behind Bearcat Stadium. And when we do get back, we'll talk about the keys to the game, both offensively and defensively, for both the Bearcats and the Griffins, as this game is now just moments away from getting started.
Amazing Things is a series that shows the best of the best.
What looks like your average everyday person can actually be an artist, a creator, a big thinker, and even a local hero.
We want to show you the artistry in their work, their dedication, and their drive.
Our show is amazing things, but what we truly show are amazing people.
Watch Amazing Things Monday through Thursday at 7:30 p.m. on KNWT Channel 8.
Life is just a series of theatrical plays, and the curtain's being pulled, and it's time to set the stage. Well, there's too much makeup on all of these faces as people desperately try to find.
Welcome back to the Pavilion, live here behind Bearcat Stadium as we are getting closer to the Northwest Missouri State Bearcats taking on the Missouri Western Griffins. And now we'll look to the keys to the game, both offensively and defensively, both for Northwest Missouri State and Missouri Western. We'll start with Northwest, and we talked about them just a couple minutes ago, but one of the biggest keys for Northwest will be the QB, Braden Wright, that redshirt freshman out of Elkhorn, Nebraska.
Yeah, he's really got to go out there and just keep himself composed. I mean, if he goes out there and starts trying to make plays that, are risky or, he's not able to make, whether it's physical ability or, he's just not at that level yet, he's got to really make sure he limits the mistakes early in the game. If he gives Missouri Western a couple chances early in the game, we don't know what kind of game this might end up being late in the game. So if he goes out there, he's able to keep himself composed and keep himself from making those mistakes, I think they'll be just fine with the defense that we know Northwest has.
Yeah, another big key, I think, for the game will be that Northwest defense. We only allowed 9 points per game last year. That is huge. So I think that's going to have to be another consistent thing that goes on, is keeping the other side of the ball at bay, not allowing big break-off plays, and really closing off every little hole in the defense that you might have and really slowing down the offense.
And another big key at the running back position will be that Missouri Western transfer in Josh Caldwell. He's going to be making his first start for the Bearcats tonight, but in last season he had 138 attempts, 856 yards, and 8 touchdowns in just 8 games, so a big threat in there in that running back position.
Yeah, he's a big threat, and he's a guy who's got speed, he's got size, so if you get in his way, he's going to try to run you over, but he can also make that little move and get around you too. So he's one of those really versatile guys at the running back position, and he's also one of those character guys that you talked about that Rich Wright loves to have on the team. He took 37 credit hours from January to the summer in order to be here and be able to play for this team. So he's dedicated to this team. He wants to do whatever he can to help this team win a championship. I think he's going to be a huge key tonight.
And as things start to kick up, the marching band is going to be making their way by, so we'll go ahead and take a quick break. And when we get back, we'll talk more about Caldwell as well as Sean Bain Jr.
That's fine. That's less time we have to talk, so.
How are we doing? We might have to do a quick adjustment because they're going to be at least 10 minutes.
Yeah, they're going to.
When we come back.
How are we doing on time? How are we doing on time?
We're at 6:05 right now. We're good. So they'll be here to 6:15, so we can go through
the keys to the game and then kind of end it there.
Yeah. Or you can even adjust to whatever you guys want to talk about next.
I think keys to the game works because that's what we've done a lot of.
I think keys to the game will be a good capstone.
Let's pick back up at the keys to the defense. I'll let you know. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the truck.
So we'll come back in with keys of the defense and all that, and that's what we'll close on.
So we'll go keys to defense and then Missouri Western keys to the game.
We'll just start coming back with Sean Bain.
Okay.
And then we'll go to Missouri Western.
Thing's gonna bug the crap out of you, isn't it? Thing's gonna bug the crap out of you, isn't it?
If you guys' mics are on, go ahead and let's walk.
Get my money? What? Oh, okay, I'll go get it. You owe me $20. Who do you got for defense?
Life is just a series of theatrical plays, and the curtain's being pulled, and it's time to set the stage. Well, there's too much makeup on all of these faces as people desperately try to find their place.
What's up, guys? I'm Jenny James, the new host of the back-to-back-to-back K&WT Show of the Year, Bearcat Update. This semester, we will give you the inside scoop on Bearcat basketball and Maryville High School hoops. Later in the semester, we bring you all of the news on spring baseball and softball in the Maryville area. Check out Bearcat Update every Monday through Thursday at 6 p.m. on KNWT Channel 8, or check out all of our previous episodes on YouTube at KNWT.
Welcome back to the Pavilion live here as we are behind Bearcat Stadium getting ready as the Northwest Missouri State Bearcats are getting set to take on the Missouri Western Griffins, and the marching band just finished up all of their pregame festivities, so we are just that much closer to kickoff. And before we left, we were talking about Josh Caldwell, and one more offensive key to the game for the Bearcats is Sean Bain Jr. had a big game last year against the Griffins and should have another big one tonight.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see just how he handles his first game back. Ashland, his last, time on the field, he dropped the pass that would have kept him going. So it'll be interesting to see his motivation to get back on the field and kind of really, have a little bit of a redemption game for him.
Yeah, and, he's always been the number one wide receiver weapon for any quarterback that's played with him so far. So he's definitely going to have to come out and really pick apart the Griffin defense here to have a big game.
Yeah, and Sean Bain in his season last season had 51 receptions, 675 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He's also going to be the punt and kick returner. At least that's the way it looks right now as they head into this game. So last year, a big year for him, but it was a little bit of a down year for him as he looks to move up the all-time Bearcat receiving and touchdown and receptions charts this year. But he's coming off his worst season of his 3 seasons, so how is he going to adjust to start this season off right tonight?
We say his worst season, but as you just listed, it wasn't a bad season. By any means, any other receiver would be happy to have that season, but I think that's the kind of motivation that he finds within himself, coming off what he would consider his worst season, obviously, statistically. I think that extra motivation to have that breakout season, help that, young redshirt freshman quarterback, help him move along this season and really propel that Bearcat offense.
Yeah, Sean Bain is one of those senior leaders that really is going to come out and help this team really stay motivated and be on top of their game. And, with a bad season by Sean Bain, that's, like you guys are saying, that's more motivation for him to go out and have an even better season for somebody that really has nothing to prove on this team, but he's going to go out and he's going to prove himself. So.
And then for the Missouri Western Griffins, there's 2 key pieces for them. It's their senior quarterback, Dom Marino, and a big-time dual-threat quarterback for the Griffins.
Yeah, and as you were telling us, a little bit before the show, he likes to operate out of that pistol, which I thought was kind of unique. You don't see that much in a college game anymore, or really anywhere anymore. But yeah, that dual threat is going to be something that the Bearcats are going to have to watch. The Bearcats have a stellar group of linebackers, but his ability to move outside of the pocket and still be able to make that throw is something that his experience is going to really be testing this Bearcat defense tonight.
Yeah, and we lost some of the really big-name defensive ends that we've had over the past few years, so they're definitely going to have to work harder considering that he's operating out of the pistol, and he can run on you or he can throw down the field. So hopefully the Bearcat defense picks up on that early, and they realize that how big of a dual-threat quarterback can be, and they exploit that.
Yeah, and last season he had 883 passing yards and 518 rushing yards, and that was in just 9 games played, 6 rushing touchdowns, 9 passing touchdowns. So they're going to have to handle that dual-threat quarterback, as well as their running back, Shamir Griffin, is in last year. He was the backup to Josh Caldwell. It had 70 attempts, 400 yards, did not find the end zone last season, so he's going to step up into that starting role for the Griffins this year.
Yeah, and not finding the end zone last season, it's a tough matchup to come into in order for him to find the end zone, as the Bearcats didn't give a single rushing touchdown all last year. But his ability to move, and he's got a little speed to him, but he's also able to pound it down inside. So his ability to really be a balanced back is something that's going to help Marino out, help take that pressure off of him. As the Bearcats like to apply pressure to quarterbacks every year, and his just ability to help relieve some of that pressure, I think, is going to be very key, especially in the start of this game.
And then when you look to the defensive end of the football, there's 3 big names of the Bearcats that you got to look at tonight. Again, 4 captains for the Bearcats on the defensive side, but defensive end Austin Eskew, linebacker Ben Altoff, and then safety Jack Richards, all 3 big names that are going to have to play well for the Bearcats tonight.
And, these guys are captains for a reason. They go out and they make those little plays that really put them above everybody else out there on the field. So, with 83 tackles by Ben Altoff last year, that is insane. That is a lot of tackles for a linebacker. And so he's definitely going to be somebody to watch tonight. And really keep Mo West's quarterback at bay, like we talked about, how he's a dual threat, and I think Northwest has the defense to do that.
And then on the Missouri Western side, there's two guys both in the secondary. We've talked about how strong this secondary is, but Brandon Dandridge and Jabbar Miles have, both key pieces to stop that Northwest passing offense.
Yeah, and that's going to be, like you said, a really key piece for them is going to be limiting that Northwest passing offense. Because if they get that passing offense going, that's going to open up the run game for them with Caldwell and the other backs that they have. But like you said, Richards and really their whole secondary is really, really experienced. I mean, they've got two seniors starting at least, and they've got a Michigan State transfer that is likely to play tonight as well. And they've just got so much depth at that defensive back position that it's going to be easy for them to throw people out there to kind of help them kind of cover Bain and the rest of the Northwest receivers since they play that nickel.
And one of the biggest differences between these two teams from last year is Northwest defense allowed 9.3 points per game. Missouri Western's defense 27.9 points per game. So that those numbers should be a little bit closer this season, as again we've talked about the strength of the Missouri Western secondary, and Northwest is just strong all around on defense.
Definitely, it's a really tale two tapes here. Northwest is really strong on the line and in the middle linebacker position, and whereas Mo West is really strong in the secondary, go after interceptions, whereas Northwest is more tackle and get them down to the ground, really chew clock up type deal. So I think it's really going to be up to these two offenses to find a way to dig deep and really get past these strong either secondary or linebacker positions and really have a good game.
And we've talked about some key players, but for you guys, what is the one key for Northwest and the one key for Missouri Western that they're going to have to do to end up winning this game?
Well, I think for Northwest, I think their defense is going to be there. I think we have no doubt that their defense is going to be there. They've been the number one ranked defense for the past 4 years for a reason. Rich Wright knows what he's doing on that side of the ball. But for the offense, I think it's going to be having the opportunity to get Wright involved early, having the opportunity to get him those easy check downs, get him comfortable in the game, not force him to try to press himself against this experienced secondary for Missouri Western.
Yeah, that is really going to be key, is getting Braden Wright into the game, getting him focused and making sure that he's doing the right thing. Other than the offensive side of the ball, I mean, you need to score to win, but Northwest defense need to exploit any weaknesses in the D-line or the O-line of Missouri Western, in order to get to the quarterback and pressure him. And I also feel like Mo West needs to prevent the home run ball and the deep pass by Northwest to Sean Bain and all that stuff. And if they want to keep in this game, you need to keep Wright from making any kind of passes or getting him to throw into coverage, and I feel like this will be a close game.
And the Northwest, Missouri State, and Missouri Western just about 30 minutes from kickoff, so that will do it for us here at the Student Media Tailgate Show as we get ready to head into Bearcat Stadium for the opening game of the 2018 football season.